Hey, it is the Investor Guys podcast. I'm Kevin Mills. This gentleman here in a snappy red shirt is Mr. Bill Barnett. How you doing, Bill?
I am doing incredibly well. I'm finally able to breathe a little bit from all the food over Thanksgiving. I hope you had an incredibly wonderful Thanksgiving.
I did, and I hope everybody who's watching us did as well. A lot to be thankful for, absolutely. And I mean, everything that we do, we should be thankful for because we have an opportunity to do it. There's just so many ways to apply that. There are people who don't have this opportunity because of where they were born. There are people who don't have this opportunity because of what geographical place they happen to be in, whatever oppressive government they were born under. There are people who don't have this opportunity just because they don't have the ability. They don't have the physical ability or the mental ability or whatever else it is. So the fact that we're able to do this, the fact that you and I can even just show up and do this show, there are so many reasons to be thankful. And I don't just consider those things, once a year. They're ever present on my mind every single day.
Yeah.
And make sure that not you, Bill, but everybody who's watching, make sure that that's something you think about every day. All the things in our lives that we have to be thankful for. People ask me how I'm doing in the morning, and I say, you know what? Any day I wake up 6 feet above ground is better than the day I wake up 6 feet underground. So every single day is something to be thankful for. Absolutely. There's a lot of things that we can hate in our lives, and we can hate about our lives, and we can hate about, the government and everything else. But the fact that we're here is reason for thanks. What did you think we might talk about today, Bill?
Well, I thought we'd talk about passive income. We'd talk about rents, about where rents are going to go. We are in a very unique situation. You mentioned the next round of lockdowns. I've said the whole time that if we thought that these people, evil as they are, were going to stop with one round of that, they're going to do everything they can to destroy our country and our economy. And Australia is already getting locked down. New Zealand is already locked down. They're trying to spread that through Europe. And they're focusing a bunch of attention on Africa, saying, oh, yeah, that's where it's coming from. Da, da, da. And the people in Africa are going,
not that bad.
Like nothing. Yeah, what are you talking about? And of course, the reason, Africa has one of the single lowest rates of COVID in the world. And why is that? Well, because they've been taking ivermectin for years. Why? Because of malaria down there. And of course, you can't have ivermectin here in the US. You can't take that as a cure for COVID because it only costs about 20 cents a dose. So go down to your local Tractor Supply, get you some ivermectin, jump online, and you'll see dosages and tell them to piss off. So other than that,
it's considered a therapeutic. So you can actually go to the doctor and get a prescription for ivermectin here in Florida. And you know what, regardless of what your political affiliation is or predilection is or anything else, you are subject to whatever the government's going to throw at you, just because you can't go up against a bunch of soldiers with weapons and police officers and everything else. So you're subject to that, which leads us into what we were talking about today. And listen, it sucks under Biden. I'll be the first person to say that. But remember who started the lockdowns, okay? We hate Biden, so it's easy to point our finger at Biden. But this could happen under a Democrat or a Republican. When we first started experiencing lockdowns, it was Republican government that caused it to do that. Now, they were easing that up when the Democrats took office. So we can point our fingers wherever we want. But the thing is we are not in control of anything we're not in control of. The way we get control over what we have in our lives and what we're doing with our lives and what we want to do, and the way we have more freedom in all of this, is by having control over our income and being able to generate a larger income. So while people were on lockdown, Bill and I were still working. Bill and I were still out. We were still doing deals. We had the ability to go and do this, in person. And I even had some videos that we did 2 years ago of me actually out with my daughter, looking at properties, looking at vacant lots, looking at things like that. But this is something that even before COVID, you could do sitting at your desk in your pajamas. This is not something you have to actively get out and do. A term that a lot of people like to use, Reggie Brooks included, mailbox money. And mailbox money is exactly what it sounds like. It is money that shows up in your mailbox. Now, in the old days, it was our mailbox. It's actually now directly deposited into our bank account. But Mailbox
Thank
money,
God
money
so.
that is there every single month because our money is working for us. Our money put on its shoes, it put on its tie in the morning, it, rolled up its sleeves, it went and it punched the clock, and it made us an income that particular day and every day. And because of that, I can sit in my pajamas and do nothing. I can go spend my day at Breakers, which is where my wife and my daughter are right now. I can go on vacation. I can do this from my vacation rental. I can do this from my hotel room. I can do this from wherever I want. I do not have to be out. So when we're on lockdown, when somebody says you can't go out, you have to wear a mask, you have to do this, you have to do that, doesn't mean that you aren't able to continue making money. Now I'm going to let Bill have a quick say here. And I want to point out how situations like this actually push us in certain directions. And Bill knows exactly where I'm going with that. But I'm going to let you have a quick say here before we wrap up this segment.
There's a couple of things I wanted to throw in. One was you mentioned that we were out doing this during the lockdown, and I want to give everybody the insight to that. We took the time when the lockdown started and you were considered essential, non-essential. And most people just say, well, I'm not essential. I certainly don't need to have a house rehab. That's not an essential item. But when you went in and actually read what the government published, defining who is essential and who isn't essential, anybody that was making more housing units available fell into the essential category. So I was out just like, we were out looking at property and there was like nobody on the roads. And we still had our rehabs going on. Now I had to have a couple phone calls with contractors and I had to walk them through and I had to send them this stuff. And I said, print this thing out, keep it in your car in case any of your truck, anybody says anything to you. And I put a big circle on we were about 8 pages into it before it came up. So if you understand that stuff, real estate is an essential part of the economy. And if we go into this again, and I fully believe that we're going to, then we're going to see that you and I still have the ability to go and do our business on a day-to-day basis. I bet we're probably up on a break.
We are up on a break. And before I go on the break really quick, I want to point out that we're talking to everybody else out there. The likelihood of Bill and I going back into a lockdown in the states that we live in are pretty slim to none. But there are states that a lot of you live in, Michigan, New York, New Jersey, where you guys are still subject to a lot of heavy restrictions. And this stuff all makes sense now, not even just talking about going into some of these things that may be coming up with Omicron. We'll be back in a minute. And we are back. And just before we went on break, we were talking about how the government can throw anything at us. And hopefully we won't be on lockdowns again because of Omicron. But after Omicron, there's going to be something else. And after that, there's going to be something else. And after that, there's going to be something else. And if anybody ever comes up with some sort of cure or way to deal with COVID, I promise you there's going to be something else. COVID is not the first time that we have faced a global pandemic. This is like 4 or 5 times in the last 100 years or more that we faced a global pandemic. I remember just 4 or 5 years ago going to the doctor's office or going to the emergency room, and the first question they asked you was if you had traveled to a country or been in contact with anybody who had Ebola. I remember people asking about Zika virus. There's always going to be something.
Yeah.
And as long as we are free and we have the ability to make our own choices, that's great. But when the government starts making our choices for us, or when our employers start making the choices for us, which they're doing now with vaccine mandates, we have less of a choice. And the way we get that back, the way we get our freedom back is by saying, hey, you know what? I don't need you. I don't need to go out. I don't need to do this. I don't need to do that. I have money. My money's working for me. I don't have to go out and punch a time clock. I don't have to figure out how I'm going to make money because the business that I work for, the business that I own has been shut down. My money is working for me because no matter what, people have to have a place to live. When things get shut down, people spend more time at home. People have to have a place to live. What we saw, the trend that we saw, and Bill can attest to this, for years, people were downsizing. They were getting smaller homes. The trend was towards smaller homes. And then as we got into this COVID virus, the trend is now bigger homes. The trend is now nicer homes. People are realizing if I'm going to spend more time at my house, I want a nicer house. I want a nicer view. I want better amenities. That is where we are trending now. And the whole consciousness of a home and a place to be has just changed in the last 2 years because we have been forced to stay at home, or some people have been forced to stay at home so much. Now, I know we're going to get into this, and this is what I mentioned on our first break. We had restrictions as far as rent and evictions. And if you're a landlord and you're watching this and you had tenants that didn't pay their rent, there are programs that you can tap into to get that rent back. Okay. There are hoops to jump through, and anything that's government related has to do with hoops, I promise. Bill and I, we have Section 8 as well. We don't have those hoops because we did not have that issue. Our rents were paid by the government on Section 8, mailbox money, okay? Direct deposit in our bank accounts or in our property managers' trust accounts on or before the first of the month. Now, rent is one of those mailbox money strategies, okay? Having a property that is a cash flowing property, that's typically because somebody's renting it, is a mailbox cash flow money working for us strategy. And one of the best ones that Bill and I like are Section 8, but there are any multitude of these strategies, okay? And when we get out of this whole lockdown situation, one of the best is commercial properties. Commercial properties are usually long-term leases. I love commercial properties. Bill, I know you've got favorites too.
Yeah, and with those commercials, we're typically 5 years is considered a kind of a short lease in the commercial world. I've had several 10-year leases in commercial and think anything about it. And that's kind of the business world. And, as we look at these rents issues, one of the things that pops up is where is rent going to go? Now, we know that inflation is going across the board, and there's nothing going on federally that's going to slow that down. In fact, the government, whether you believe it or not, is encouraging inflation. They're talking out of their mouth saying, no, no, no. And then they're doing everything they possibly can to get inflation higher and higher and higher. And so DS News, Direct Servicing News, which is a mortgage publication, came out with this great article about how high can rent go. And as the economy continues to see consumer prices for everything rising across the board, rents and mortgage rates are no exception. They've also been increasing, and in some cities, as much as 30% increase in rent just in the last year alone. According to Redfin, the average national rent price has increased 13% over the last year. In 1 year, 13% nationally. National. We're not talking about one market. We're not talking about one state. We're not talking about just a segment of one city. Nationally, 13%. But mortgage rates have gone up 17% during that same amount of time. This equates to a 3.2% month over month increase for mortgage payments and a 0.4% increase of rent month over month. While past data showed that the rate at which rents and mortgage payments increased was basically covering each other, rising at the same time and rising as home prices rose and interest rates rose. The average monthly mortgage payment over the last month has been leading that rise. The report also found that rent price increases were outpacing mortgage increases in 29 of the top 50 metro areas in the U.S. So we start looking at October of 2021, the average monthly rent was $1,858. That's nationwide. The average home mortgage was $1,533. Now, month over month, we already went what those were, but year over year, the rent went up almost 13%, 12.5% in actual dollar amount, and the home mortgage payment went up 17%. So we had some top 5 states that saw the rent increases. Number one, well, Kev knows this, Florida, number one in rent increases. State of Washington, we're talking about, people still living under oppression. Washington was number 2. Oregon was number 3. We were number 4 here in Texas, and state of New York was number 5. The top 5 to see rent increases And those aren't slowing down. We're going to continue to see more and more. And it's because of, for Florida and for Texas, it's because of the increased amount of people coming in every single month. And so over the top 50 metro areas, only 15 saw a growth rate or an increase of less than 13%. Those were Chicago at 11, Pittsburgh at 7, San Francisco at 7. In addition, there was only one of the top 50 markets in the entire country that had a decrease in rents, St. Louis, Missouri. Top 10 metro areas that saw increases of at least 30%. West Palm Beach, number 1. Fort Lauderdale, number 2. Miami, number 3. Seattle, number 4. Jacksonville, number 5. Portland, number 6. Austin, Texas, number 7. Newark, number 8. Nassau County, New York, number 9. And New York metropolitan area, New York City, number 10. All of those went up over 30% in a descending order. Fast rising rents could contribute to inflationary woes. Wow, there's a shocking statement. Employees facing higher rents are likely to demand higher compensation from their employers, which could in turn lead to even more inflation down the road. Skyrocketing rents in most of the desirable cities suggests that there is an overall shortage of homes. We knew that, and not just homes that are for sale, homes that are rent are under a shortage as well. The Build Back Better bill that is currently being debated contains $150 billion earmarked for affordable housing. That is what we were talking about as we started the segment. It is a place that if you are not participating in, and we know that the likelihood is that you're not because of the shortage of demand or availability of Section 8 housing around the country. Now, you'll hear it referred to, Kevin and I still call it Section 8 because that's what it was called for many, many years. They're trying to, so there's a stigma to Section 8, so they're calling it the housing voucher program, which is all that's complete BS.
Housing.
It doesn't matter. You're either getting a check, your government's either paying the rent or not. You can call it whatever you want to call it. It doesn't change anything. However, you got to participate in this. If you're not, you really should seriously consider it because of things like what we just went through. And now we're seeing the possibility of it coming in. Now, when we haven't heard this conversation starting yet, but I can promise you, because it is spreading through Europe, the conversation, the storyline of, oh, we got locked down, we got locked down, we got locked down. That's going through Europe again. It's already going through Britain again. They haven't started them there, although Australia and New Zealand have. They're going to push that, and they're going to use Europe as a way to be able to say, see, we should, the rest of the world's doing this, we should too. And the only way we've got out of this thing is November in 2022. If you have the possibility of being a poll watcher, you have to go do that. That is one of the ways that we have to be able to say there's a possibility of having integrity in our elections. You saw in this incredibly blue state of Virginia, once they had poll watchers, they had a 93% Republican of the poll watchers available that could be Republican. 93% of them showed up, and that created a massive integrity for their elections. And they have a policy of see something, say something. And so they knew everybody in the world was watching them. And so the cheaters backed off, and surprise, all across the board there. You're going to see that in a ton of states, but we have to do our part. We have to show, first we have to vote, but we have to show up and be poll watchers as well to make sure that we have integrity in the elections. That gives us a chance to take this economy back and to be able to start putting the brakes on inflation, on unemployment. But inflation is going to get nuts, and to be able to repeal some of this insane spending that's been going on, which doesn't benefit you or me. It benefits a few select companies and a lot of money laundering going on for other countries and politicians. It's not about benefiting you. I mean, it's certainly not about infrastructure. If you'll take the time to simply read the bill, you'll see that.
Now,
we can
real quick
benefit.
before we wrap out this segment, okay?
Yeah.
I just want to say, if you're headed to Florida, not that I wouldn't love to have you as a neighbor, okay, but please consider Orlando or Tampa or one of the other areas, because there is literally nothing. You're doing yourself a favor too. There is nothing available. I mean, I literally say that. You look at the MLS, and what is available today is going to be $300,000-$500,000 more than what it was last year, and it's going to be gone tomorrow. And there's nowhere to rent. It's not just West Palm Beach. It is Broward County, which is Fort Lauderdale, and it is Miami, and just everybody from all over the world is ascending upon us. We have Australians, we have people from New Zealand, we have people from Great Britain, we have people from Europe, we have people from Canada, we've got people from everywhere. And I talk to these people. It's great going out because it is a super cultural visit, just walking around the streets of Florida. We're not on lockdown. We get to talk. And that's why people are here. Okay. Like, we had to get out of Canada. We had to get out of Australia. We had to get out of wherever it was. There's no more room here. I don't mean to be
Central Florida and north.
Yeah.
Central and north.
Look towards Orlando,
Panhandle.
towards Tampa. Yeah, where there's still space. There's just nowhere for us to grow right here is the problem. We're up against the swamp and we're up against the ocean. We'll be back in just a minute because we've got more to talk about. And we're back. Something I wanted to mention really quick as well. When we start talking about these numbers, when Bill starts talking about rents are up, mortgages are up, this is up, that is up. We always have new investors saying, is this really a good time to start then? Should I just wait? Are the numbers going to fall? Is it going to cool off? The answer is no, it's not. Yes, we'll see numbers change, and yes, we'll see certain numbers cool off, and we'll see other numbers get hot. The point I always pose to people when they ask that question is, what if you had started this 5 years ago? What if you'd started this 10 years ago? Would that be a question that was even in your mind? So you need to start this now, because I promise you, in 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, you're going to see these numbers again doing the same thing. You're going to wish that when you had this conversation with me, you had pulled the trigger and you had gotten started. Yep. The longer you wait to get started, the more money you're losing. And it's not just a dollar amount. It is a dollar amount that increases exponentially every single year. You could say every single month, but absolutely every single year, especially if you're looking at rental properties, because we renew leases on a yearly basis. Yeah. Even if the economy isn't going nuts, we still have a cost of living increase that we put in there. We still have an inflationary increase that we put in there every single year on our rents. So every single year that you miss out on that little tick, okay, you're losing money. So you could find a deal that's going to give you, I like 50%. I'm okay with 40%. Bill likes 40%. He's got his little thing up in the back right there. It is 40% program. Yeah. If you're making 40% now, in 5 years, when you've had, say, just a 2% per year markup, okay, you're making another more than 10% by just owning that property. And you've got another 5 years worth of equity, got another 5 years worth of somebody paying down your note. It's the longer you take, the more money you are losing. And we always get that question. Everybody always thinks there's a better time to get started. I promise you, there is no better time than right now to get started. The only time that was better than right now was 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago.
And speaking about that time, so in the late 80s, early 90s, you and I are both living in California, and I don't recall if it was Newsweek or Time, but the California real estate market was taking a dump, and there was a cover came out, and on that cover was an outline of the state of California, and it had the big circle with the red line through it, and the caption was, and this was the front cover, "Real estate is dead." And I'm reading the thing, and even then I'm laughing, going, these people don't have a clue. And there were things being said like, prices will never get this high again. the market's going to correct and get back down, and then it's going to stay down. And of course, what happened was the market did correct. And as soon as the correction was over, which was about 3 years, as soon as the correction was over, it exploded and just took off. And then we saw that again in 2007-8 when we had the Obama foreclosure debacle and prices dropped. But what people fail to realize, and they fail to look at because they don't study the market like you and I do, is when prices start going down, they never go down below where the last run up started. You may give back 30, 40, 50% of that's gone up, but it never goes back to where it was or below. And then it catches its breath again and off it goes. Now, we are going to see prices drop sometime in the near future, just from a standpoint of how high everything is getting from an interest rate standpoint. It will cool the market off somewhere down the road. You and I in Florida and Texas are likely to be 2 years behind that, if not more, because of the kind of false nature of rising prices in our areas because of so many people coming in. But it's going to cool off and price is going to drop. People go like, oh no, and then it's going to run again. And so what does that mean? When's the best time to buy? Absolutely right now. You wait till tomorrow, then get started tomorrow. But get started, do something to start building your portfolio and build some passive income, because every day that we get closer to something else happening, the more passive income you have, the less impact it has on you if something does happen. And you have to prepare for that. Now, you have to move forward. In my mind, we have to move forward thinking that something like that's very likely to happen. And are we prepared? That's all we need to be, is have our money prepared. And the best way to do that is to have guaranteed income coming in and have it coming in from the federal government. Now, if that ever stops, then the fact that the rent money stopped is going to be the worst of our problems. The federal government's not there, but no matter how goofy we think it is at the moment, but it is an incredible opportunity for you to get in, to be able to help other people, to be able to get paid stupid money while that's happening, and to be able to depend on something coming from the government that benefits us in a very direct individual way.
Yes, while helping others out, because there are people, there are people who absolutely exploit the Section 8 and government benefits niche without a doubt. But there are people that absolutely do need it. I have Section 8 tenants that are disabled. I have Section 8 tenants that are disabled veterans. I have Section 8 tenants that are single parents that have many kids, and they're not single parents because they don't know how to have a relationship. Oftentimes because they're a widow or a widower. It does help people out. I wish that particular niche was better controlled and it was designed more to help people get back on their feet and get out of that particular situation instead of becoming dependent upon that particular situation. But that's just my own personal view. That doesn't mean that I'm not going to still take advantage of money that the government is going to hand out. And it's no different than if you're a contractor and you're bidding on government contracts. That money comes from taxpayers and you're getting overpaid by the government because of the requirements, and that's coming out of taxpayer dollars. Everybody thinks, oh, how great it would be to sell hammers to the Pentagon for $150 a hammer. If you're that hammer guy, are you the bad guy, or is it the Pentagon for buying hammers for $150 a piece? Put yourself in a position where you understand what you're doing and you're comfortable with it, and make money from that. And getting back to what we started with back at the top of the hour almost here, Mailbox Money. This is money that works for you. This is money that you invest and you send it off to work every day, and it comes back with a paycheck that it hands to you and you deposit in your bank account while you sit at home watching Andy Griffith reruns, or being on vacation, or hanging out at the golf club, whatever it is that you want to do for your day, because you are free, because you don't have that ball and chain. You're not a slave to your job. You're not a slave to your employer. You're not a slave to having to earn a paycheck.
Amen, brother. Amen. And look, if you want to learn how to do that, you keep showing up here. You go to investorguyspodcast.com. There are learning, training opportunities there. Kevin and I both be more than happy to help you because it is important. The government looks to you and to me to be able to provide the inventory. They provide the cash, but we have to provide the inventory. And that's how one of the reasons that we get paid so well is that, well, we provide the inventory for the federal government. And there's a way to get in that supply chain to the government that doesn't have, you don't have to worry about cost of fuel with the supply chain there. It's not going to break down on that piece of it. And you can be helping others while you are helping yourself very nicely.
And a closing pitch, if you will, if you have taken those real estate classes, if you feel like you're ready, you just can't find that momentum, you feel like you're just spinning your wheels. Okay. That's what Bill and I are here for. We both do consulting. We have people who are very capable. They have the knowledge. They just lack that push, or they lack that traction to actually get started and get moving. And once you get that momentum going, for anybody who knows, that momentum starts to snowball. If that's you in that position, contact Bill, contact me. We both have consulting programs to get you moving and get you down that road so that your portfolio is going to grow and your efforts start snowballing. So you can reach out to either of us at those emails that Bill just gave us, and we will see all of you back here hopefully on Thursday. Have a happy Tuesday. Have a happy Wednesday. Happy investing.
Thanks, everybody.
Later.
Good seeing you, brother.
Good to see you as always. Take care.